Alright guys, that's Scrappy again today. I hope you're doing that and enjoying all day so far. The Halo World Championship concluded last night once again in a controversial finale. Space Station Gaming, they walk away with the championship, OpTic falling short again. Can you believe it? But so many events, especially one specific moment in the grand final, which has caused mass debate last night. The referees seemingly making a very basic strategic blunder in another reset cheese scenario. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Another big question of today as well. What is going to be next for FormaL? We've speculated on this now for several months at this point. Is FormaL's Halo career going to be cooked after this tournament? Is he going to continue? Is he going to call it a day? What's the plan going to be, especially with a back-to-back tryout game, it seems, on the menu on the Call of Duty side? We're not exactly sure where FormaL's headed down on this. I'm sure we'll find out more over the coming days, but it has been a talking point from the likes of Clay. Of course, I don't know what Clay's going to do, but, you know, the talk has been this year's game is a tryout game, Black Ops 6. Next year's game is a tryout game. We believe it's like a Black Ops 3 2 remaster. I'm not going to mention Black Ops, so I'm not going to get my hopes on that, but you know what I mean, right? The theory is that it's like a Black Ops 2.5, kind of like a sequel to Black Ops 2, that's kind of like a remastered game, kind of not. I don't know, there's some speculation on it, but the theory is the next couple of years are kind of going to be rather good. So there's obviously been thoughts about that from some players in other esports as well, but yeah, FormaL of course was going yesterday for his third World Championship win. We know that Shotzzy now has 3 rings. He has 1 in COD in 2020, online ring, but it is what it is. He had 1 in Halo, Shotzzy back in 2018, and then he had 1 on LAN in COD, most recently at the World Championship in Dallas. So there was questions after Shotzzy won that. Was Shotzzy now the best ever like esports player from a controller perspective? And maybe you can argue it. I still think FormaL clears for now. Like FormaL's career is far longer with far more longevity, and the fact that FormaL's been able to compete at the level that he has for, you know, well over a decade now in various esports, and just to be the absolute talisman that he is as well on the rosters that he's on, like as in the vocal leader and all these other factors that FormaL brings to the table on the roster. I don't think Shotzzy has got to that level yet. If Shotzy's career continues, which I'm sure it will for another 5+ years, then I'm sure that Shotzzy can, well, go on to take that crown. But at least in terms of event wins, FormaL is still the man to beat in that category. And yesterday, like, he was really looking to cement that. I mean, I feel like he was already the best controller player of all time, and still is in my opinion. But, you know, nonetheless, the 3rd ring yesterday would have absolutely cemented it. So yeah, the Halo watch party was getting underway. Scump and the boys watching this all go down last night, and again, highly controversial as you might expect. It's been the case now in Halo for some time that a lot of these grand finals get very interesting indeed. Even the most recent tournaments, there was some reset cheese related drama, similar in many respects to what goes on in the Call of Duty League. As frustrating as it is, the developers, despite the fact that this game has been out for a rather long time at this point, don't really seem to be especially on top of trying to clamp down on the problems in the game. It's the case in COD, it's the case in Halo. It's also just frustrating watching these esports be played, because in real esports, in many respects, like something like Counter-Strike, for example, if the game does crash, if there's a PC problem, and it happens, right? PCs have malfunctions, right? It is what it is, and sometimes that occurs, and you've got to restart the game. In CS, you can restart the game exactly. The game can be paused at that moment, you can bring back up the game exactly at that point, and you can start again with everyone keeping their KDs on the scoreboard, and everything, and everyone keeping their money, of course, which is massively important in CS. In other games, that don't really exist. It's like, well, the game crashed, and most of the time, the game is crashing because the game is just broken, not even because of PC-related problems. There's just an issue with the code of the game that they can't seem to solve for whatever reason. So these things just happen again and again and again, and when they do happen, the way that they are handled is almost always an absolute disaster. To be honest, it's been the case in COD, I mean, plenty of times, and seemingly the case in Halo as well. So the winners finals goes down. Space Station get the double OpTic. I mean, these guys were so good this year. You got to think about, right, 2022 was OpTic's year, they won champs. Last year was FaZe's year, they won champs. This year pretty much was Space Station's gaming's year, right? Like, these guys were unbelievable. We've talked about their potential as an organization getting into the Call of Duty League as well, but it's not like they were unbeatable, right? Because OpTic went on to beat FaZe in the losers finals and make it back to yet another grand final. And this stat is just ridiculous, but we've got to talk about it. 7 grand finals in a row, stretching back, of course, to last year's World Championship grand final where they lost to FaZe. Ever since then, every event they've been to, they've made the grand finals again, and every event they've been to, they've come second in those grand finals, right? So, you know, we talk about the ice, and to be honest, I don't know if it's like a dent on FormaL's legacy, but you've got to say, right, the Space Station Gaming this year were some way equivalent to Cold War FaZe, right? Just winning everything. The OpTic Gaming team this year were pretty much equivalent to the Vanguard FaZe team, and honestly, in some respects, they took it to the next level, right? Like, Cold War FaZe won basically everything. Vanguard FaZe, literally the next year, they were seconds 4 times. Almost every event FaZe was second that year, didn't win. OpTic took that to new highs this year, and like, FormaL still played incredibly well. The OpTic boys were so close the entire year, but not winning one is definitely like a bit of it's difficult. Is it a dent on the legacy, or is it like, wow, you made 7 grand finals in a row, like, impressive, but you lost them all, right? And it's got to be said, like, with FaZe back in Vanguard, people are roasting them hard for this, and people are roasting OpTic hard for this, and it's fair enough. But part of their losses this season, TacticalRab's losses, have been controversial, and we'll get into that right about now. So they make it back to the grand finals. FormaL's like, look, we've got the chance to do something legendary, all these second places in a row. Can we go and win the big one? And they started off oh so well, right? They start off in the grand finals, 1-0 advantage. Now, you can sometimes see this, right? Because OpTic was starting from the loser side. They had to win back-to-back best-of-7s against Space Station, which was going to be such an incredibly tall order to actually make happen, but you do get the slight advantage of having just played. They just took down FaZe, so you know, a little bit warmer going into the grand finals against SSG, and they capitalize on that. They quite quickly go up 3-0 in the grand finals. They win map 1, they take map 2, map 3 falls as well, and you know, at this point, full of belief, right? Because Space Station, they're the best team, sure, they're the team you've got to beat, but when you go up 3-0 on them in the grand finals first map, you're thinking, you know, why can't we do this, right? OpTic Gaming and FormaL did it back in Infinite Warfare, not best of 7s, but they lost to Envy in the winners finals, I think. Envy, that was the team of Slasher, John, Apathy, and JCap. The OpTic Dynasty dropped down to losers, and they weren't obviously cemented as a dynasty until they actually made this comeback and won it. But once they made the grand finals, they basically just smoked Envy back-to-back series in 2 best-of-5s, right? And that was potentially what FormaL was trying to do here. So OpTic, they win this capture the flag, they get the 3-0 advantage, and then this happens on the oddball. So they're trying to go up 4-0, dominate the first best-of-7, and then really put the pressure on SSG going into the bracket reset for all the bread. But this was a crucial moment here, right? So at this point, the game has a problem, it crashes, and like, again, people talk about SSG for this or whatever, right? Like, I don't think they're trying to cheese things. I just think the game's broken. The big drama on this one was not about that, because before there were some implications, like the last event from OpTic, that maybe there was some cheese happening from that team. This time the cheese was from the refs. So look at the bottom of the screen. Space Station Gaming are at 1-0 in the rounds, its first to 2 rounds, first to 100 seconds with oddball control to win the round, and OpTic at this point are up 26-21. So a very slender advantage. If this was Slayer, this would be a massive deal. In oddball, it's not as big of a deal, but it still is a big deal. So it's 26-21. They reset the map, they started again, so you can see if you look at the scoreboard here, everyone's got their kills and their objective time and all this, and then it goes back to 0, right? So they start the game again from this point, and they manually add in the scores that the teams had before the reset, right? So they can do that, and that's a feature in the game, and fair enough. But they got the scores wrong, because as you guys can tell on this one, it's 26 to OpTic, 21 to Space Station before the reset. When they restarted the game, it was 21 to OpTic, 26 to Space Station. So the referees put the numbers in wrong and gave Space Station a 10-point swing in their advantage, down 3-0 to make the comeback in the series. Now, did this make a difference in the grand scheme of things? Maybe not, and we'll discuss that now, but it's just one of those things that just not only feels incredibly bad for the players, but also I imagine the players noticed this. They haven't, like, I'm sure they are aware now, and they probably noticed it at the time, because fans did, for sure. And it's one of those things that just checks you out, right? Like, that's my kind of questions about this. And it shouldn't affect, like, a top-level player, you should be able to lock back in. But you know what I mean? You restart the game, and maybe you should have just said to the refs, probably, I mean, if they'd have noticed immediately, maybe they would have done, I don't know. But the fact that all of a sudden you're playing it from a disadvantage you shouldn't have had, and then you go on to lose the map anyway, then all of a sudden it's a different story. And to be fair, when the game crashed, OpTic were in a great position. They had ball control. They were probably, like, pretty much anyway. I think they were in a good position here after Eco just went down to get some more time. So, you know, there was lots of things going for OpTic in this scenario. The reset plus the mistake, if you, you know, want to call it that, then definitely swung the tide, right? And it's just a critical moment. And it starts off back 21-26 the other way. Loads of people, understandably, were talking about this as well, from the reset to how things were initially, and it was understandably getting lots of traction. And, you know, the admins are trolling, like, what's going on here, right? If this happened in the CDL, it would be an absolutely huge deal, and for understandable reasons. So the same thing in Halo as well. And it's just like the circumstances, the World Championship Grand Final, like, you can't be making this type of error. And in the end, Space Station won the map. They won this round 100-61. So it wasn't like the 10-point swing mattered in that sense, but it still mattered in the grand scheme of things. And the reset was not pretty at all. So Space Station then take map 4, and all of a sudden they then have the momentum. And, you know, it's just unfortunate again for OpTic, because FormaL was playing some lights out Halo, and the observers on this, I'm not going to lie, didn't do the best job. But I mean, FormaL literally popped a kill TacticalRab in the grand finals of the World Championship against the eventual world champions in Space Station Gaming. And I mean, like, have a look at this. He gets the overkill, and then he gets the kill TacticalRab off spawn as well. Like, absolutely insane stuff. And the OpTic team still couldn't capitalize on this. I think this was the map where Lucid had a bit of a rough one, which was, like, Lucid was arguably their best player in the tournament, has been such a solid player, but in this specific grand final, in a critical moment, didn't have his best map, and he'll definitely be reflecting on that. Obviously, Dashy was saying, wow, this guy is absolutely different, and sure, the resets happens. He wanted to end it then and there, but after losing that map 5, all of a sudden, SSG had the momentum, and, you know, they get the reset cheers, they bring it back, and sure, like, the team, obviously, OpTic will know that on some level, they've got to be mentally stronger than this, but at the same time, SSG, having done so before, probably just did so again, and eventually SSG, they walk away with your world championship. So, like, an incredible tournament in many respects. It went in the way that you could have predicted it to go. If you had to predict the tournament results, you know, a SSG, OpTic, FaZe top 3 is pretty much exactly what people would have said. But the way that it happened again was just, like, so controversial. So FormaL, like, instead of crashing out about this on the timeline, I thought his response was really nice. He says, we just didn't have what it takes to be great this year. GG's definitely played. Appreciate the support. Like, you know, he does a pretty standard FormaL tweet. So I do wonder whether there's anything in that in terms of what's going to happen next for FormaL's career. Is that it for him? Like, he doesn't really tweet in a way that, like, he's super reminiscing in the sense that he won't come back again. But he did hint a while ago that this probably is it for him in Halo after doing 3 years of Infinite. And, you know, the day-to-day grind of playing this game every day, is that really what he wants for the future? He would have loved to cap it out, of course, with a victory at the World Championship. Just falling short is going to be devastating, and maybe FormaL's the type of guy to say, screw that, I'm going again. You know, I want to win next year's. But, look, maybe you could return to a different esport. That's not out of the realms of possibility either. So tricky stuff. Just one thing to share. I thought this is pretty funny. People comparing the OpTic Halo roster this season to the Team Caliber team back in the day, the Theory, Sharp, Goonjar, Neslo team. What a team that was. And they were known back in the day for a fair few second places. This was their record back in Black Ops 2 to Ghost, certainly the early part of Ghost, when this roster came seconds or third or fourth a number of times. They were oh so close to winning. Even they had FormaL on their team at some point, who replaced Neslo when he made the transition briefly over to Call of Duty. But, well, not briefly, you know what I mean? Like, he transitioned to COD and was briefly on Team Caliber before he then team hopped to other teams. They did eventually win with that roster a little bit later, but they had so many second places, famously at the X Games as well. That was the notable one, just because they'd had so many seconds with at least a similar roster in the earlier part of the season, and then they capped it off with another second place again. But it doesn't quite match up to what OpTic have done, right? I mean, like, even from last year's Halo World Championship through to obviously Fort Worth before that, but all the events they've played since then, it's just been seconds, and yeah, it's happened again here at the World Championship 2024. So very much intrigued to your thoughts, as always, in the comments section below. The switch to Unreal Engine 5 is quite interesting, by the way, because, you know, just for what that means, whether FormaL's looking at this and thinking it matters at all, probably not, but it might be something to consider. So hit the like button if you enjoyed, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.
What, me being quiet and shit?
Yeah, are they getting to you? Oh my god, and FormaL popped.
What?
Oh!
Oh!
It don't matter if Warlock win FormaL slot.
No fucking way.